Good morning and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode 163 in an ongoing series of live broadcasts designed for folk who've already figured out that the best way to get better at doing what they do is to get better at being who they are at their core. This is a broadcast for folk who've got a growth mindset or folk who want to develop one. All right, so do me a favor, just like every great conversation, the more voices we have, the richer it is. Please click share below your video and invite your folks to join in. And these are folk who are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and also on Clubhouse. So feel free to invite your friends on whichever platform you're on to join this conversation. All right, so this week, fascinating conversation I've been having about owning your mess, right? I remember growing up, well, I remember part of growing up, that I was at home on the stage. But for me, playing the character wasn't enough. I wanted to conjure them. I wanted to inhabit them. I wanted to bring them to life, and I was pretty good at it. Now, I sucked at singing. I was terrible at singing. In fact, I took singing lessons for about 6 months when I was in college. And oh my, the woman who was teaching me came to me one day and let me know that she was going to retire and not retire from teaching me. She wanted to retire from teaching, period. So I'm going to say I was bad. I was really bad. Couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. But the singing and the dancing part and the inhabiting the character, the bringing them to life, that I was good at. But the sad part is the reason I was so good at it is I believe that I wanted to become those characters instead of being me, instead of being the mess that I was at that age. Like, who wasn't a mess in high school? Truth be told, we're all a mess, and we're all a mess all the time. That's part of what being human is. And so the quote that I wanted to share was a quote from Elizabeth Gilbert. Um, Embrace the glorious mess that you are. And it's such an important piece to own the perfect imperfection that is being human. To dive in and own that piece. To embrace the glorious mess that you are. And so as I played with the quote, what came up for me is like, why do I spend or expend so much energy trying not to look messy, trying to look all put together, keeping the hair back? You know, my morning routine is anything but routine. I wrestle with mindsets that don't serve. You know, I battle with negative internal narratives. I have strong saboteurs. I doubt my gifts. I I love relearning lessons. I procrastinate. I take criticism personally. And yes, sometimes I cry at Hallmark commercials. I am a glorious mess. And yet, in the very next moment, I create my life. I shift my mindset. I move fluidly from saboteur to sage. I lean into and expand my gifts. I dive into intentional action. I execute like a madman. I celebrate even the harshest critiques. I have to work very hard on that one. And I hold and support folk with amazing strength as they go through their darkest night. And yet, I am still a glorious mess. But that's what's so awesome for me, right? My strength and my power come from fully embracing my humanity, my messiness in all of its glory. But here's the trick. It's like we often feel this jump to defend ourselves, right? I'm anxious, but I'm a really good listener. I'm messy, but I'm a really hard worker. I have spastic hair, but I'm a really good friend. I'm a good dad, and I'm incredibly ADHD. No, that's minimizing. Yeah, I'm a hot mess and a really good friend. I'm a good dad and I'm ADD off the charts. It's all me, all different sections and parts that make up the glorious mess that I am. Is there room for improvement? Oh my God, some days that's all there is lots of room for improvement. I think there's a big, huge, massive difference between leaning into improvement, striving to be better, and cutting away all the parts of ourselves that have no business being shaved down to nothing. There's a difference between wanting to be the best version of myself and feeling like I have to hide the parts that aren't quite there yet. There's a giant leap between wanting to sit myself on the bench and keep from chasing my dreams because I don't think I'm good enough yet. The game is about embracing the glorious mess that I am. And as Parisa says, with grace. Neil was saying acceptance is the first step in moving forward in so many areas. And that's really what this game is about. I mean, because look, here's the spoiler alert. You're a glorious mess too. That's part of being human. It's that, to be human is to be perfectly imperfect. And to seek perfection is to do nothing but invite suffering. Because we never get to perfection. Every time we learn something deeper about what our next level of growth is, perfection becomes farther and farther out. Because what we thought was perfect before that we were striving for, the more we learn, the farther away it gets because one never reaches perfection. We're never done. We're always a masterpiece in the making. Mary Virginia says it's so interesting how we jump to judgment of ourselves so much more than relaxing it and cultivating patience and appreciation. Patience. Oy. Patience. Patience is a trip, right? Oh God, never ask God, source, universe, never ask for patience because what you'll be given is the opportunity to find patience. You're never given what it is you're asked for. You're given the opportunity to surface it. Patience. What a fascinating idea. When I'm more patient, I'm better at being the glorious mess that I am. When I'm impatient, that's the suffering place, right? What is it the Buddha said? That suffering begins when reality diverges from expectation. If I'm expecting myself to be patient or to have the ability to be patient, oh dear God, reality is going to diverge from that expectation. When I expect myself to be messy and to be a work in progress, there's so much more grace there. To be messy and to be human and to find my way. Wow. Bringing patience there, bringing acceptance there. I was telling somebody the story. I applied to be a LinkedIn Live broadcaster the first week that they had announced that they were making that available. As usual, I was moving very quickly. I missed the instruction that said you have to have two-factor authentication turned on. two-factor authentication can be a pain because I have a team that's also logging in to post things into the back of my profile, to log new, what do you call it, podcast appearances and post new articles to the article section. And when there's two-factor authentication, it's complicated. So I'm like, oh no, I missed that altogether. And then I reapplied a couple months later, and I reapplied a couple months later, and I was getting irritated. Now I have a long track record of live broadcasts. I have a large following. Why won't they accept me? Well, the mess that I am is often moving too quickly and not paying enough attention. I had a conversation with another live broadcaster, and they mentioned something about having to turn on two-factor authentication. I was like, oh. So I went back in, I reapplied, I turned on two-factor authentication, I applied again, 26 hours. That's why I'm able to go live on LinkedIn with this broadcast now. But it was all because I was a glorious mess. Or as Parisa points out, I'm an Enneagram 7. And that's the piece, is leaning into who I am with no pressure to be anything else and finding the humor in it instead of flogging myself for 6 months of not being able to broadcast on LinkedIn because of the way I'm wired and how I engage with the world. I found the humor in it. It's become a glorious story when I talk to other broadcasters. Yes, I'm a glorious mess. And I could flog myself for it the way I want to do, or let that go because it's just part of the mess. And I found that not only do I expend a lot of energy trying to pull it together and look good and not look messy, I waste a lot of energy being irritated for being a mess. I have, up until now, wasted a lot of energy flogging myself for being human. One of my first coaches, Laurie Schneider, up in Hamilton, Ontario, just outside of GTA, outside of Toronto. Oh my God, if he said to me one more time, oh, those wacky humans, poking at me, making fun of me for giving myself a hard time for my humanity, I was going to drive up to Canada and slap him. And he kept poking that bear because it was the lesson I needed to hear. It's clearly still a lesson I need to hear. It's not engaging and giving permission for my full humanity. What lessons am I missing by not embracing being the glorious mess that I am? And conversely, what lessons am I getting by noticing this and by sharing it here? So what's your mess? What is your mess? I mean, Lynn points out, there's a cornerstone of Adlerian psychology. Adler was a disciple of Freud, except Adler, instead of seeing everyone as Freud did, as broken and constantly seeking being fixed, Adler held that we are all creative, resourceful, and whole, all from birth. And any time we fall out of that, we merely seek to return. It's so much more of a positive way of being, is leaning back into our natural state of being of creative, resourceful, and whole. And CTI, Coactive Training Institute, one of their cornerstones is that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. And wow, how different is it to look at our world knowing that we are glorious messes is just nothing more than knowing that we have messy states and we move effortlessly, easefully back to our natural state of being creative, resourceful, and whole. How exquisitely different is that to look at our world that way? What's available for you when you see the mess that you are possibly right now? But know that the game is to easily return to your natural state of being creative, resourceful, and whole. There's so much more grace there. Lynn, thank you for bringing that back. So this week, play with embracing your glorious mess. Hold on to the idea that when you notice mess, the opportunity is to move easefully back to your natural state of being creative, of being resourceful, and being whole. We are all whole, whether we have broken behaviors we want to see different, mindsets we want to see different or not, we are still whole. Those mindsets or behaviors are what's broken. We are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. You are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, and the mess is just a temporary state. So this week, play. Enjoy the mess. Finger paint, make mud pies, dive into being the glorious mess that you are. Give yourself the grace and permission to be whatever comes next. And look, as always, you are invited to come to mindsetmondays.com to catch some of the back episodes, because there are a ton. And you have the opportunity to come to facebook.com/group/Mindset Mondays and share the mess that you are. Share your creativity, your wholeness, your resourcefulness, and what's shifting in your world. I look forward to seeing you here next week. And between now and next week, what mindset will you choose?